This month, we bring our attention to the hips, and today we'll focus on the hip flexors. The psoas major and iliacus together are often called iliopsoas, or simply the hip flexors, if one is referring to every single muscle that engages in this action. One of my favorite balancing poses for people of all ages is a simple single leg mountain. We must find balance as we stand on one leg and resist letting the standing leg pop out sideways at the hip. Standing on one leg also makes us more aware of any muscle imbalances we have, because no one is exactly the same on both sides. Often when I start by simply raising one foot off the ground, pulling the toes into dorsiflexion up towards the shins, as I create a slight bend in the knee, engage my abdominals, my glutes, and lift my inner ankle while maintaining the neutral curves of my spine. Then I invite a bigger bend into my knee and flex the hip. If someone has restrictions in the hip joint, the basic mountain pose with both feet down can be nice and allow some energy and blood flow to move through the body in a safer way than trying to force ourselves into a position our body is not ready for, such as triangle or goddess. If my hips are particularly tight, or I have a student with very restricted movement in their hips, I start in mountain and simply go through the hips range of motion. I'll have them roll the thigh out into lateral rotation, roll the thigh in into medial rotation, flex and extend the hip, and if they struggle with balance, I invite them to keep the ball of their foot in contact with the mat and be near a wall for support and safety. This is all done slowly, and you can go back and forth. I would never recommend anyone engage into pain, so this is obviously a listen to your body scenario. But remember, the foot position is just as important as head position. For example, if someone is struggling, have them step their feet slightly further apart. This usually helps with balance, even in mountain pose. When we sit all day long at a desk, for example, our hip flexors get tight, but they may also be weak. Engaging our hip flexors in our yoga practice can help us keep them healthy, and as always, we need to both activate and stretch our muscles. Remember, the opposing muscle group are the extensors, and to help aid our hip flexors in stretching, we engage our extensors, the glutes. For example, when we're focusing on lengthening the anterior hip, or the hip flexors, say we're in a crescent lunge or a high lunge, for example, we squeeze the glutes because that helps. The opposing muscle group is contracting and the other is stretching. This is true for all muscles in the body, not just the hip muscles. And it's a very helpful way to help create some movement in the body.